is an energy analyst. Let me now introduce to you the guests for tonight who are going to help me take the conversation on what to expect for the energy sector in the upcoming 2023 mid-year budget review and supplementary budget estimates. Once again, we have energy economist from the Africa Center for Energy and Environmental Sustainability who joined us last week on Energy 101, Dr. Gideon Ofosu-Peasah, and of course, Dr. Yusuf Sulemana is still staying on for the discussion. Dr. Peasah, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, and then good evening to your listeners, and then those also viewing on Facebook and other social media handles.
Let's go straight into action. I mean, what do you expect? Which areas do you expect the budget to touch by way of energy revision?
Okay, actually, it is interesting gauging the moods of Ghanaians. Ghanaians are looking up to measures that will be taken to ensure some form of stability in the tariff for the rest of the year.
You mean the power tariffs, right? You're talking about
yes.
Interesting.
The tariffs.
Okay.
Whilst at the same time, government's taking in measures to settle the debt owed to independent power producers.
Okay.
And then linked to that, we are looking at also how governance of the state-owned enterprises will be improved, and then further investments will be made. So we know that in the first quarter of this year, electricity tariffs went up by 29.9%. In the second quarter of this year, the average end user tariffs also went up by 18.36%. And then we have been told that the government is looking at ways in which they would want to set cost reflective tariffs.
Right.
So we are also on the aspect of debt too. We are being told that the government owns about $1.7 billion US. That is the ECG owes $1.7 billion to IPPs. So all this do have implications for electricity supply security, and then how the tariffs will be for the rest of the year.
But Doc, it's going to be very interesting, don't you think so? Because we have a situation where LPG, LNG prices and lean fuel and all, what have you, have been coming down for some time now. And these are inputs for the power sector. And so the PURC will certainly have to factor in all these. And government will also want to maximize revenues and get profits and make money. So how would the balance be?
Okay, so thank you very much. You are right. There are a couple of things that government would want to look at. So, for instance, there was a document that they introduced known as the Energy Sector Recovery Program. And then one of the key policy actions is to fully address the issue of excess take or pay generation capacity, i.e. do some kind of renegotiations. And then I am aware that some form of renegotiations have been done about, I think from the beginning of the year, 6 agreements have been renegotiated, and then estimates suggest that it is going to lead to savings of at least $4 million US over a period of 5 years. If you want to do the NPV, that is going to be somewhere around $3.5 million by 2023. So as we continue to ensure that we try to do this renegotiation, we are going to have some form of savings there. Now, if you want to also look at the price buildup, there are components of exchange rates, there are inflation components, and then the cost of the feedstock, as you mentioned. An issue that would have to be looked at is issues have to do with issues around macro management. How do we ensure that there is some relative form of stability in the performance of the cedi against the dollar, and then, if possible, even improve it? How are we going to ensure that inflation is stabilized or even reduced? And then also a very significant aspect is this issue of energy efficiency.
Right.
We see about some 30% of power distributed lost. So this is something that would have to be addressed. Now, another component that would also feed into the price and has to do with there should be some form of regular audits by of the independent power plants to ensure that they are billing. There's some form of transparency in the billing. And then also, when you're talking about the merit dispatch order, it should be frequently monitored to ensure that if a plant is being called the cheapest, is dispatched first. So I think these are some of the things that we would be.
All right, I'll come back to you, but let me go to Dr. Yusuf now. Doc, so
Doctor, to ensure that we have some kind of stability.
All right, thank you very much. I'll come back to you, Dr. Suleimana.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, Ima.
Yes. So Dr. Peasah has been elaborating on the power sector. And expectations of, in the budget 2023 budget review. Now, what about the petroleum sector? Let's do the downstream. People are also expecting some reliefs, further reliefs, of course, in the petroleum price build-up. These are low-hanging fruits for government, and by way of the conditionality by the IMF, one of them says the IMF expects automatic adjustment of fuel levies by exchange rate movement or inflation. And so how or what do you expect by way of levies or removal of taxes that the finance minister will touch on in the 2023 mid-year budget?
Yeah, so what I'm clear about with respect to the expectation of 2023 budget in the petroleum sector, there will not be, I don't foresee any reduction, of course. What we hope will be no further increment of any sort in terms of these levies and taxes that we have in the price build-up. But where clearly that I want to look at with respect to this IMF, conditionalities. I always say that, IMF conditionalities, we should see it as a kind of a set point that we work around. If you want to live to the latter, to the well and latter of all these conditionalities, we might as well bring our economy to a standstill, and they know that, of course. So they put these gauges for us to look at them and to guide us, but not necessarily to just say that we have to live by them. For instance, if you look at our petroleum price build-up, 3 components goes into what the consumer pays at the pump. One is these taxes, levies, and stuff that we talked about. The other one is the prevailing prices that the commodity sells in the international space, as in crude oil and finished products, And then the major component of it is the exchange rate dynamics. Now, IMF is saying that we should leave market forces, because that's exactly what they're talking about. We should leave market forces to determine these exchange rates. And you know what it means? It will mean that Bank of Ghana has to stop. In fact, they consider Bank of Ghana intervention as a kind of interference in the market forces. And it's good that I was very pleased to hear. In fact, I spoke to Joy and I think TV3 on this today. I was very pleased to hear Bank of Ghana still extending about $120 million US dollars to the BDCs to continue, their business of oil importation. Yeah. If that is not done, assuming we're going to live to the well and latter of IMF conditionality, we cannot arrest our fuel prices, because the exchange rate contributes a lot. And if the Bank of Ghana is able to help in releasing part of this money, this auction, to these BDCs, what will happen is that it will bring about some level of certainty within the market, because bear in mind, they need about $350 to $400 million on monthly basis. If Bank of Ghana do not support, in fact, I'm one of the people who don't support 100% Bank of Ghana to be doing that. But at this moment in time, we cannot just take IMF condition and say Bank of Ghana should stay off that. So I was very pleased that Bank of Ghana extended that hand. And the reason being that we are living in precarious times, and fuel prices is something that we can't afford to let it skyrocket. Otherwise, we can't have a firm handle on the inflation. In recent times, the inflation is improving. It's not the best. If you don't have a firm handle on fuel prices, you can as well know that every other thing you will not be able to handle that. So yes, the conditionalities are there, but we will have to look at this, and we will have to be pragmatic and look at ways that can sustain, that can guarantee, at least a stable, competitive pump prices to the end user. Other than that, fluctuations are not good. It's not good for business continuity planning, and we all knew what it comes with. So yes, that's what I think is trying to happen.
Sure.
Then the other thing within the petroleum, I wanted to add another crucial thing within the petroleum sector that came up. If you notice, I always call for us to have, a kind of backup. All this kind of injection, putting so much dollars which we don't have, into the system. If we are able to minimize our dependence on importation, that can help a lot, and it can create a lot of value chain vibrancy within the petroleum value chain.
When you say we should minimize, we should minimize importation, what do you mean? Because we've always imported fuel products. So what are you talking about?
Yes, we have refinery. We try to, so I call on what is going on within the media. If you remember, some couple of weeks ago, some deals came up, to be able to lease store. We have Toronto and other deals that came up. Let's take the cost and get back. It's very important.
Okay,
we have a private refinery that is also on the pipeline. Let's see how we can help it to come up. If the BDCs and our oil marketing companies can source most of this product locally.
But Doc, don't you think in this regard, Tor, if Tor should be put into running again, don't you think it's going to sell its products according to or based on the international prices?
Yes, people only make this argument, and that's a fact. They will do that. But are we going to look? If you know the kind of cost that is involved in this kind of chain where we bring the finished product from outside into the country, it's that kind of chain, the longer that kind of chain costs a lot. But if we have the finished product, if you have the crude oil, we have the finished product, we can leverage upon that.
Okay.
If you leverage upon that, it's going to help a lot.
Let me come back to you, but Dr. Peasah, what about the gold for oil? Do you expect the finance minister to render some accountability in maybe so far oil imported under this intervention and how much gold has been sold? Do you expect anything like that, Doc? Hello,
okay,
Doc.
So before I answer that, just to add up, so for me, one of my recommendations regarding TOR is that there should be some form of partial privatization of a sort to be able to inject some capital. They will have to do investment, retooling, and then all that. And then also the idea of that business mind, improve efficiency. Okay, looking at improve efficiency, looking at the number of staff that they have, whether they are even needed, and then all that. That kind of private kind of touch to it is going to ensure that things work. And again, when you are importing petroleum products, there are three key elements. The cost of the product is itself, and the cost of insurance, and then freight. So if you are doing some refinery, yes, you may do some kind of savings around how do you call it? Insurance and freight, especially if you are getting the crude oil from maybe our oil fields or nearby West African countries. So that is just an addition. Now, regarding the gold for oil policy, we are saying that there is still some issues around the transparency. Who are the partners in there? Who are the intermediaries in there? I do not know. I've asked around. I am still trying to get answers, and I believe that many industry watchers are also still trying to get answers. And we are also being told that the Bank of Ghana is also thinking of withdrawing gradually from the gold for oil policy because it is so much exposed to volatilities in gold prices. That is a red flag that we may have to look at. Some of us were like, yeah, this gold of oil policy will be good, but the role of these of the Bank of Ghana in there, it is something that they may not be able to sustain for long. So of course, we should know how much we have, who we have sold to, how much we have raised so far, who the intermediaries are. Okay, and then so that we can get data to do some kind of serious analysis to see whether we should proceed with this or not. And then as it stands now, the Bank of Ghana has announced that it will want to withdraw over a period of time. So it will be interesting to hear updates on that.
Doc, do you expect any introduction of new taxes in the price builder for petrol? Because I'm also hearing from the grapevine.
New taxes.
Yes,
in fact, it is taxes are usually seen as a low-hanging fruit for government over the period of time. But you and I are not ready for new taxes as it stands now. So, especially as we are also heading into elections, I doubt. Maybe Dr. Silomano.
Finally, Dr. Peasah, what are your final words before we wrap up?
Okay, so we hope to see how the ECG can improve its performance by ensuring compliance to benchmarks or KPIs that has been set by the PURC and then the SIGA, etc. We're also expecting them to do a lot of recovery. We know that as at in December 2022, they were able to do some kind of recovery, about $163,000 from their operations in Eastern region, and then they said this was due to power thefts. We are also looking at how these debts will be paid. How is Volta Aluminum Company, their bills, how will it be settled? We are also looking at all MDAs, all state institutions, including tertiary institutions, are going to pay their own bills. They are going to get their prepaid meters. We are also looking at an updated energy sector recovery program that is going to restore the financial health of the sector. And then, yes, if we are able to get some investments to ensure that we shore up rural electricity access from 50% upwards, these are things that we'll be looking out for.
Thank you so much. Dr. Gideon Ofosu-Peasah is an energy economist from the Africa Center for Energy and Environmental Sustainability, and Dr. Suleimana Yusuf is the CEO for Eureka Company and also an international petroleum consultant. Thank you very much for your critical thoughts, which have impacted on this latest edition of the Energy 101. My name is Emmanuel Boaji. Let's meet again same time next Monday for more interesting developments in the world of energy. Have a good evening.